Just before Daniel and I were about to get married, I found an old journal he'd written when he was 16. She's so fat and she likes me. It's disgusting. I got a girlfriend now, hoping she'd give up, stop looking at me like that. His bitter scribbles stopped abruptly on May 13th. That was the day I sacrificed my career as a weightlifter to save him. I vaguely remembered that day during our freshman year when he asked me, "Do you want to be with me?" When I said yes, the relief on his face was unmistakable. Thought it was love. Mutual, genuine. But now I know. It was just him. Wrestling with guilt for years, finally deciding to repay a debt. Suddenly, none of it felt meaningful anymore. I broke off the engagement and walked away from Daniel. Months later, on a chilly night, he was parked outside my apartment, waiting. His eyes turned red when he saw the man standing next to me. "Who is he?" "Your new boyfriend." The summer night carried a faint chill. Daniel hadn't said a word since he stepped inside. I sat a little stiffly to the side, unsure of what to do. His mother, Emma, reached over, gently holding my hand. Her warmth both comforting and unsettling. She looked straight at Daniel, her voice sharp with frustration. "If you don't want to set a date for the engagement, just say it. End it now. You've been together for 7 years. What exactly are you waiting for?" Clara's been patient more than anyone else would be. But that doesn't mean you can keep her waiting forever. Her face flushed with anger. "I can't believe I raised someone like you." I forced a smile, squeezing her hand lightly, pretending to be unfazed. "It's okay. I can wait for him." "Silly girl," she muttered, turning back to Daniel. Her voice trembling with emotion. "I won't let him treat you like this. I just don't get it. What's stopping him from proposing? What more does he need?" The sharp click of a lighter interrupted her rant. Daniel flicking it open and shut, restless, his face as cold as stone. Then finally he let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Fine. Let's get married." He stood abruptly, his movements harsh and final. "Plan it however you want." Without sparing me a single glance, he stormed upstairs. A tightness gripped my chest. I murmured something to Emma, trying to mask the ache in my voice. Then quickly followed him. The sound of running water echoed from the bathroom. Daniel was in the shower. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the floor, my mind a tangled mess. After what felt like forever, I gathered the courage to speak, my voice barely above a whisper. "Daniel, do you not want to get married?" The water was too loud. He couldn't hear me. A few minutes later, the water stopped. He opened the door, a towel lazily wrapped around his waist. "What did you say?" His hair was dripping wet, droplets sliding down his sharp features, tracing the lines of his lean body, rolling over his chest. My face flushed instantly, heat creeping up my neck. Words tangled on my tongue. I stammered, looking anywhere but at him. When he started getting dressed, I squeezed my eyes shut, silently counting sheep to distract myself. Then his large hand gently ruffled my hair. "I'm done. You can open your eyes now." I slowly blinked, finding him fully dressed, crouching down to meet my gaze. "What is it you're trying to say? Do you not want to get married?" "No," he glanced away, standing up, gathering his dirty clothes. "Don't overthink it." But I knew. Daniel was lying. He didn't want to get married. Not even a little. I wanted to tell him, "Maybe we should postpone the wedding. Or I'm not in a rush. We can wait until you're ready." But the words caught in my throat, leaving only a bitter sting. I couldn't stay in that room any longer. My chest felt too tight. I stood up quickly. "I'll just go to bed." He grabbed my hand, his brow furrowed in frustration. "You're sleeping in a different room?" His fingers tilted my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Are you crying?" "No." His expression darkened, annoyance flashing across his face. "I already agreed to marry you. What more do you want from me?" His words hit like a slap, sharp, careless, and cruel. In 7 years he'd rarely spoken to me like this. But tonight, maybe it was Emma's nagging, maybe his own bottled-up resentment, but for the first time, Daniel didn't bother hiding how he really felt. I froze, the sting of humiliation spreading through me like wildfire. He didn't wait for a response. Just turned, opened the door, and left. The faint scent of his soap lingered in the air. The only trace of the conversation we'd just had. After that night, neither Daniel nor I ever brought it up again. We didn't mention postponing the wedding either. But something shifted. He grew quieter, more distant. Even when it came to picking out the wedding dress, he couldn't be bothered to show any interest. He was often busy until midnight. When I texted him, his replies came hours later. Busy. On Emma's birthday, he didn't come home. Everyone laughed it off, trying to smooth over the awkwardness. But we all knew, this was Daniel's silent protest against his mother. I ignored the heaviness settling in my chest, pretended nothing was wrong, and practiced smiling like it was a skill I could master. Until one morning weeks later I woke up to find him staring at his phone, lost in thought. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" I asked, trying to sit up, eager to talk. But he quickly locked his phone, his face darkening with annoyance. "Fine. I'll sleep now." Still, in that fleeting moment, I'd seen it. A photo on his screen. 17-year-old Daniel with 17-year-old Monica. I turned my back to him, feeling like I'd plunged into icy water. Memories came rushing back. Peter's sneer the day he found out Daniel and I were dating. "So what if he's with you? You'll never be better than Monica." His voice dripping with contempt, dragging out the words like knives. Fat. Ugly. Joke. What did I think back then? I thought, if I just hold on long enough, Daniel will fall for me. One day he'll love me. But now, staring at the ceiling with tears burning behind my eyes, the truth was undeniable. He never forgot Monica. The fragile strength I'd been clinging to shattered in an instant. I didn't want to get married anymore. I wanted to leave Daniel. After making the decision, I agonized over when to say it. Ever since I moved in with Daniel after high school, his mother, Emma, had treated me with genuine warmth. I could tell she truly liked me, saw me as a daughter. Maybe that's why it was so hard. I didn't know how to tell them without breaking their hearts. We had an appointment to try on wedding dresses, but Daniel canceled at the last minute, claiming he had a work meeting. After college, he started working at an advertising agency handling campaign strategies. I'd never liked his job much. It demanded long hours, endless overtime, sometimes even calls at 2 in the morning. So when he said he was busy, I didn't doubt him. In fact, I felt oddly relieved. But Emma was worried. She thought Daniel was still sulking over their last argument, avoiding the dress fitting out of spite. Furious, she stormed outside to call him, unleashing a tirade before I could stop her. When I found her, she had just hung up. Her eyes looked a little red. She grabbed her bag, took my hand and tugged me toward the door. "It's okay, Clara. We'll go find him and he's going to explain himself. Who the hell is more important than being here with his fiancée to pick out her wedding dress? He's lost his damn mind." That's when it clicked. Monica was back. No wonder he'd been so distracted lately. No wonder he'd said he was too busy to come today. It all made sense now. When you reach the depths of heartbreak, sometimes all you can do is laugh. Emma flinched at the sound of my bitter chuckle. She pulled me into a hug, her voice trembling. "Clara, don't worry. I'll handle this. I won't let him treat you like this." "Emma." I gently pushed her away, my voice soft but steady. "Thank you. But this is something I need to handle myself. Trust me, I'll take care of it." I went upstairs, stood motionless for a while, then reached into my bag for my phone. My hands trembled and everything spilled onto the floor. I crouched down, picked up the phone and without overthinking, leaned against the foot of the bed and called him. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. There was noise in the background. Loud, chaotic. "What?" His voice was sharp, filled with irritation. "Where are you?" Silence. Then a soft, mocking laugh. "What, checking up on me now?" He moved somewhere quieter, his voice dropping into that familiar condescending tone. "Clara, do you really need to go this far? Was it not enough that you had my mom yell at me and now you're here to scold me too? I already said I'd marry you. Isn't that enough? Where are you?" I repeated, my nails digging into the flesh of my palm, clinging to composure with everything I had. "Fine. I'm at 54th Street. If you want to come, then come." He paused, then added almost as an afterthought, "Since you're coming, bring the file folder from my desk in the study." The line went dead. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, refusing to let the tears fall. I rarely entered Daniel's study because he didn't like me going in there. The room was decorated in stark black and white, just like him, cold, distant, and meticulously neat. The folder he'd asked for was right on the desk. Easy to spot. But as I reached for it, My eyes fell on a journal lying beside it. Maybe people really do have instincts about certain things. I knew I shouldn't open it, but I couldn't look away. The moment I flipped it open, I found myself holding my breath. August 29th, 2015. There's a new girl at home. My parents said she's an athletic recruit and will be living with us from now on. She always smells like sweat. It's disgusting. I froze. I remembered that sweltering summer day when I arrived at the Wilsons with all my belongings in tow. My parents were close friends with Emma. That year, I'd been accepted into a private high school on an athletic scholarship. To make things easier, they'd asked Emma if I could stay with her family. Daniel was the one who opened the door. He wore a crisp white t-shirt, his hair neat and clean, his smile bright and warm. He even carried my luggage inside without hesitation. Turning back, he asked, "I'm Daniel. What's your name?" "Clara," I replied shyly. He smiled again, setting my bags down gently in the room they'd prepared for me. "Everything's ready for you. If you need anything, just ask. My mom will take care of it." Back then, he was kind, polite, gentle. I stood there, awkward and nervous, but something soft took root in my heart. I never imagined that, at that very moment, he thought I was disgusting. November 5th, 2015. He keeps looking at me weird. Does she seriously like me? He even gave me a birthday gift. A handmade plush toy. Peter wanted it, so I gave it to him. It gave me goosebumps just touching it. January 3rd, 2016. I hate when people joke about me and that fat pig. March 7th, 2016. She actually confessed to me. God, does she think she's the heroine of some cheesy romance novel? How long is she planning to stay here? My heart felt like it had been plunged into ice water. My breathing grew shallow and my hands trembled as I turned the pages. When I first arrived in Los Angeles, I didn't have any friends. No one at school wanted to hang out with me except for a teammate from the weightlifting team who occasionally made small talk. Most of the time I was alone. But Daniel was different. He looked out for me. He remembered when I had my period, stood up for me when others mocked me, and even helped bandage my injuries when I got hurt. Falling for Daniel felt natural. Inevitable. Even after realizing he didn't love me, even when I'd already decided to leave him, I never regretted loving him when I was young. I'd saved up what little money I had back then to buy materials for that handmade plush toy. Took me weeks, sewing, ripping it apart, and trying again until it was just right. When I gave it to him at a party, everyone stared. I felt embarrassed, almost pulled it back. But Daniel took it with a smile, gently placing it back in the gift box. "Thanks. I really like it," he'd said. Thought he meant it. So even when his friend Peter mouthed "fat pig" at me across the room, I didn't mind. I never cared how others saw me. As long as Daniel liked my gift, that was enough. 17-year-old me never imagined that he'd turn around and give it to Peter, who tossed it in the trash the moment he left. I never understood why Peter despised me so much. Until later, when I realized it was simply because I wasn't pretty. That was all it took to make me a target. But back then I thought Daniel was different. I carried my feelings for him like a fragile secret. Convinced it was something special. Just because I wasn't pretty, I'd been labeled as gross, unbearable, a joke. When I confessed my feelings, I stuttered so badly I couldn't even finish a sentence. Daniel had smiled warmly, like he was trying to be gentle. "Thank you for liking me, but I'm not looking to date anyone right now," he'd said. What was he really thinking at that moment? A wave of nausea hit me. I leaned over, gagging, but nothing came up, just dry heaves. Tears spilled down my face, uninvited, unstoppable. Still, I clutched the journal and forced myself to keep reading. April 9th, 2016. I got a girlfriend now. Hopefully she'll finally give up and stop looking at me like that. I let out a laugh, sharp, bitter, and hollow. For the first time I realized how pathetic my feelings were. How cheap. How worthless. But he could have just told me. There were so many chances, so many moments when he could have been honest. If he'd just told me, I would have stopped. I would have walked away. Why do all those small, thoughtful gestures exist if he was writing things like this behind my back? The last journal entry was dated May 13th. That was the day Daniel got into a fight with some thugs over money. I'd stepped in to protect him, taking the hit meant for him. They broke my arm and wrist. It ended my weightlifting career. Not long after that, Daniel broke up with Monica. She went abroad and they lost contact for good. After starting college, I began paying more attention to my appearance and managing my weight. That's when things between Daniel and me really started to change. Maybe it was gratitude for what I'd done for him, or maybe it was just the dim, flattering glow of the lights that night. Out of nowhere, he grabbed my hand and asked, "Do you still like me?" I was so nervous I couldn't even look at him. Then he cupped the back of my neck and kissed me. It was my first kiss, cool and faintly minty. The very next day, Daniel took me to see Emma. "We're together," he announced. For a moment, he seemed lighter, like a weight had been lifted from his chest. Looking back now, I realize what I thought was genuine affection was just him convincing himself he was repaying a debt. Everything suddenly felt clear. I took a deep breath, grabbed both the folder and the journal, and headed to the address Daniel had given me. When I arrived, Daniel was playing pool with Peter. His face was cold and unreadable, silent as ever. Peter, as usual, couldn't resist stirring the pot. "Hey Daniel. Now that Monica's back, why don't you just dump Clara already? You're not seriously attached, are you? God, I still remember the first time I saw her. All that flab clutching that ugly plush toy she made for you." Daniel slammed his cue down. "Can you shut up for once?" The door burst open. Everyone froze. Daniel's eyes flashed with panic. But when he saw it was just me, he quickly composed himself. I walked straight over, handed him the folder. "Here's your file," I said flatly. "Thanks." He hesitated, as if trying to find the right words, but then he saw the journal in my hand. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. My voice was raw, shaky. "Was it fun, Daniel?" I hurled the journal at him, hitting him square in the chest. He didn't move. His eyes filled with that same flicker of panic. He reached out as if to steady me, to comfort me. But Peter stepped in, shoving me hard. "What the hell's wrong with you, Clara? Are you insane?" Without thinking, I slapped him across the face, my hand trembling. "I'm talking to Daniel. Who the hell do you think you are?" I was shaking, but the words came out sharp and fierce. "All these years you've never missed a chance to tear me down. Fat pig. Ugly bitch. Aren't you tired of it yet? Because I am. So what if I was a weightlifter? I gained weight for my career. Is that supposed to be shameful? Who the hell are you to judge me? My own parents never commented on my weight, never criticized how I looked. What gives you the right? You're like a damn leech, clinging to me with your cheap insults. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were obsessed with me. Maybe that's it. Maybe you do like me. That would explain why you've been biting at my heels like a rabid dog all these years." Peter was stunned, his mouth opening slightly, but no words came out. Daniel tried to pull me into his arms. "Clara, calm down." "I am calm." I shoved him hard, snatching the journal off the floor. I flipped it open, forcing him to look at the words he'd written. The more he read, the paler he became. His lips moved, barely audible. "Let me explain." I laughed, cold, bitter. "Let's break up, Daniel." My eyes locked on his, burning with rage. "You make me sick. Just thinking about you makes me want to throw up." I spun around and walked out without looking back. Daniel tried to follow, but I stopped in my tracks, turning slightly. "What? Are you chasing after me because you suddenly want to marry me?" He froze, rooted to the spot. I kept walking, each step pulling me farther away until I disappeared from his sight completely. After confronting Daniel, he spent the next few days avoiding me at home. Everyone felt the tension, but no one dared to ask. The first person I told was my mom. When she heard the news, she wasn't surprised. "Do you want to come home?" she asked gently. "I need some time to think," I replied. "I haven't told Emma about the breakup yet." No matter what happened between Daniel and me, Emma's kindness had always been genuine. I didn't want to hurt her. Besides, quitting my job wasn't something I could do overnight. Starting over always takes courage. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the mirror for a long time. Maybe it was because of my job, constantly surrounded by attractive, polished people, that I'd become meticulous about my appearance. Somewhere along the way, I'd turned into what people casually called a pretty girl. But as I gazed into the mirror, I saw a different version of myself, one from long ago. Gripping the barbell, knees bent, lowering into a squat. Day after day, the same routine. That girl slowly faded, replaced by the woman in front of me, flawlessly made up, clocking in and out of work on schedule every day. I looked better now, but I wasn't happier. I missed wearing workout clothes, barefaced and carefree. living a life unburdened by appearances. Not this constantly tense, high-strung city version of me. Life's biggest decisions often come down to a single moment of clarity. That night, I cooked an elaborate dinner. I didn't want to be like Daniel, indecisive, afraid to face things head-on. I knew this breakup had to come from me. Otherwise, Emma would never accept it. After dinner, I finally spoke. "Emma," I said softly, "Daniel and I broke up." Before she could react, I added, "It was my decision." Her eyes filled with tears instantly. I reached for her hand, resting my head gently on her shoulder. "Emma, I know you love me, but you can't force feelings. I don't love him anymore. That's why I've decided to quit my job. I've already submitted my resignation, and once I finish the handover, I'm going back home." I smiled at her, trying to ease the heaviness in the room. "If you ever miss me, come visit. You'll always be welcome." Emma didn't say a word. She just cried, silently, tears streaming down her face as she pulled me into a tight embrace. She held me for a long time before finally whispering, her voice choked with emotion, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry Daniel hurt you. If I'd known what he was really like, I never would've. I'm so sorry, Clara." I comforted her for a long time, holding her hand, assuring her it wasn't her fault. Daniel found out I was leaving half a month later, on my last day at work. I had booked a flight for the next day at 10 a.m. heading back home. That evening, he knocked on my door, his voice hoarse. "Can we talk? Time really does dull certain things." The pain I'd felt in the beginning had faded, replaced by something deeper, indifference. "There's nothing left to say," I replied with a faint smile. "Don't worry, we'll part on good terms. I won't make things difficult with your mom, and she won't pressure you anymore." "That's not what I meant." I opened the door. Our eyes met. He looked drained, hollow, like sleep had been a stranger to him for days. He asked, "What time's your flight tomorrow? Can I take you to the airport?" "Do whatever you want." With that, I closed the door. The next day, Daniel drove me to the airport. I didn't refuse. It was the last time anyway. For Emma's sake, I didn't want things to get ugly. When we arrived, he handed me my luggage. But when I reached for it, he didn't let go. We tugged at it for a moment until my patience wore thin. I shot him a cold, sharp look. His gaze dropped, and slowly he loosened his grip. "Keep in touch," he mumbled. I let out a soft, bitter laugh and walked away without looking back. The first thing I did before boarding the plane was block his number. Cutting ties completely was the best ending for us. After I got home, the first thing I did was sleep for 3 days straight. My hometown wasn't like Los Angeles. Its pace was slow, almost serene. After the wedding was called off, my relatives were concerned, but they didn't pry. Instead, they'd casually remind me to get out of the house, to take walks, as if fresh air could heal a broken heart. A few weeks later, my aunt started trying to set me up on blind dates. My mom laughed it off, politely declining again and again until they finally gave up. Over the years, I'd managed to save up quite a bit, around $100,000. I put most of it into savings and invested a small portion. Just as I was wondering what to do next, my high school friend Becky reached out. She was planning to start a social media channel, and upon hearing I was back, insisted I join her. Her idea was simple: a street-style making friends with strangers show. We randomly interview strangers. If they're open to making new friends, they write down a few details about themselves, and we pass that along to the next person. If both sides are interested, we arrange for them to meet, she explained enthusiastically. I'd been thinking about what to do for my next job, and her idea clicked with me instantly. I even invested $10,000 as our startup fund. Becky squealed with excitement, hugging me tightly, planting exaggerated kisses on my cheek. "This is it," she shouted. "You know what? With the two of us working together, there's no way we won't succeed." I couldn't help but laugh, a little exasperated but also genuinely happy. Maybe it was because a new life was just beginning to unfold. Whether we succeeded or failed didn't matter much. What mattered was that, for the first time in a long while, I felt excited about the road ahead. Once we got serious, we started planning our first shoot. We chose a local university, randomly interviewing students on campus. The response was lukewarm. So we decided to switch things up and headed to an elementary school. This time, everything felt smoother. There's something about being around kids. Their innocence, their lack of filters. That melts away the tension. After we wrapped up the shoot, Becky turned to me, grinning. "Food first," she declared. And just like that, we headed off to find something to eat. Becky suddenly grabbed my hand, her voice filled with excitement. "Clara, look. There's a hot guy over there." Under the shade of a tree not far away stood a guy in a black suit. Tall, sharp features, effortlessly attractive. He seemed to have been watching us for a while. Then, as if gathering his courage, he jogged over, a faint blush coloring his cheeks. Are you guys working on some kind of social networking project?" he asked softly, holding out his phone toward me. His gaze met mine, a little nervous but steady. "Well, can I get to know you?" I was still processing how to respond when my phone buzzed with 2 new messages. A number I didn't recognize. I opened them to find a photo. Daniel holding hands with Monica. The caption read, "They're together now." I didn't even need to guess. It had to be Peter. That familiar wave of nausea rose up, but it passed quicker this time. I typed back, "Not my business." As soon as the message sent, I blocked Peter's number without hesitation. Becky noticed the shift in my expression, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Hey, are you okay?" "Nothing. Just an idiot." As soon as the words left my mouth, I looked up at the guy standing in front of me and quickly added, "Not you." He chuckled, unfazed. I figured. With an easy smile, he extended his phone again. "So, can I add your contact?" Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, right, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Brian." After exchanging contacts with Brian, I returned home, only to catch the hesitant tone in my mom's voice that hinted at something she wasn't saying outright. Turns out, my meeting with Brian wasn't just a random coincidence. We'd actually gone to the same middle school. Curious, I rummaged through an old box until I found our graduation photo. It took me a while, scanning every face, before I spotted a skinny boy tucked away in the corner of the picture, barely recognizable as the man I'd met that day. I had no memory of him. My mom, of course, was more than happy to jump to romantic conclusions. "Maybe Brian's been in love with you all along," she mused. "After all these years, fate brings you together again, like sparks flying the moment you meet." I couldn't help but laugh. "Mom, how many romance novels have you been reading?" After Daniel, I'd had my fill of misplaced feelings. I wasn't about to romanticize anything again. Still, I found myself staring at my phone, debating whether or not to text Brian. Eventually I did. Turns out we were classmates in middle school. The message was marked as read almost immediately, but he didn't reply right away. After a few minutes he responded, "Yeah. I hope you don't mind." I smiled as I typed back, "Why would I mind?" His reply came quickly, "That's great. We should hang out more. I don't really have many friends around here." Over time, Brian started showing up unannounced when Becky and I were filming, casually offering to help with the camera. Eventually, he just became our official videographer. He had an easygoing charm, friendly, energetic kind. He could chat with anyone, even 80-year-old grandmas, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And my mom, he adored him. Once, after bumping into him by chance, she practically dragged him home for dinner. One day while we were reviewing footage, I glanced at him and said quietly, "You're not the same guy I met the first time." He blinked, clearly confused. When I explained that I meant how he'd gone from the polished guy in a suit to this carefree, bright-eyed version of himself, he scratched the back of his head and chuckled. Yeah. Sorry. I just thought first impressions were important." "And now they're not?" I teased. He leaned in slightly, his eyes sparkling. "Now the second impression matters more." I wasn't into the whole suited-up, corporate type anyway. And truth be told, I wasn't looking to fall in love. When I realized Brian had feelings for me, I decided not to dance around it. I told him directly. That night, instead of texting back, he drove straight to my apartment. He sent me a simple message, "Look outside." I peeked out the window to see him standing there holding a bunch of balloons. One by one, he let them float into the sky, until only one remained. I reached out, catching the string from my window. Attached was a small note, "We don't have to date. Just let me be your friend, okay? I'll wait for you." There we were, each holding one end of the same string. The world felt incredibly quiet, the moon casting a soft, lonely glow over the man standing below. I could tell he was nervous, probably thinking every second I hesitated was another nail in the coffin. But I tied the balloon to my window, smiled, and sent him a message. "Hey there, my friend." And that's when Brian smiled. 2 months later, I received a message from Daniel. He'd switched to a new number to contact me. When I blocked him, he just changed it again. One time, I accidentally answered without checking the caller ID. There was silence on the other end. Frustrated, my patience worn thin, I snapped, "Daniel, can you stop bothering me?" His voice came through hoarse and low. "Clara, my mom misses you. When are you coming to see her?" The mention of Emma softened me just a little. She'd been calling me often, probably worried about how I was doing. When I didn't answer, she'd send messages instead, sharing bits of her day, photos of the meals she'd cooked, all dishes I loved. Every time I saw those messages, my chest tightened, tears threatening to spill. I remembered when I first moved into their home, how she'd do the same, always trying to make me feel welcome with her cooking. When I got sick, she'd stay up all night taking care of me. I couldn't be cold to her even if I hated Daniel. I couldn't bring myself to be that cruel. Sensing the shift in my tone, Daniel pressed on. "Do you have time soon? Or I can come pick you up right now if you want." I cut him off. "Aren't you back with Monica?" There was a pause on the other end, heavy and telling. I let out a cold laugh. "Is this how you treat all your girlfriends? Always chasing after what you don't have?" I took a deep breath, my voice steady and sharp. "Daniel, don't you realize how ridiculous you are?" After that call, he went quiet. I thought that was the end of it, finally. But I didn't expect to run into Peter. Brian and I had just stepped out of a cafe when a sleek black Maybach pulled up in front of us. The window rolled down. And the moment I saw that familiar face, my smile vanished. Peter sneered. Well, Clara. Got yourself a new boyfriend." He gave Brian a condescending once-over, then turned back to me, his smirk widening. "Hey man," he said to Brian. "You know what she used to look like?" Before he could finish, Brian's fist connected with his face. I gasped, stunned. Peter stumbled back, furious, and swung right back at him. Peter clutched the side of his face, his jaw clenched as he spat blood onto the pavement. Without thinking, I marched up to him, grabbed a fistful of his collar, and yanked him closer. My eyes locked onto his, filled with a rage I could barely contain. "Peter," I hissed, "what the hell is wrong with you?" His lips curled into that same smug, infuriating grin. "Oh, I'm messed up all right. What are you gonna do about it?" He sneered, eyes glinting with mockery. He reached out as if trying to touch my hand. I jerked back instantly, releasing my grip on his shirt. Peter straightened up, casually brushing off the wrinkles like none of it mattered. "Oh, by the way," he said with a smirk, "Daniel and Monica broke up. Looks like he still can't get over you." He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice with fake sincerity. I thought a text might not do it justice, so I figured I'd deliver the news in person. Then he straightened up again, rubbing his jaw with exaggerated drama. "And here I was, being the nice guy, only to get punched by your new boyfriend. Talk about misunderstanding good intentions." I stared at him, expression blank, not giving him the satisfaction of a reaction. Eventually, even Peter grew bored with his own performance. Without another word, I reached for Brian's hand. He blinked in surprise but quickly recovered, squeezing my fingers tightly as if grounding us both. I just wanted to get away from there. I didn't notice the faint blush creeping up Brian's ears, nor the sudden shift in Peter's face, his smugness cracking into something darker, colder. "Clara," Peter called out again, his voice sharp, cutting through the space between us. When I turned, his eyes were different this time. An odd mix of frustration and something I didn't care enough to decipher. "Why don't you just get back with Daniel?" he snapped. "I swear. If you do, I'll stop insulting you." I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. I just looked him dead in the eye and said, "Get lost. Don't let me see your face again." Then I turned my back on him, pulling Brian with me, leaving Peter standing there with nothing but his bruised ego. Later that night, for the first time in months, I texted Daniel. "Can't you control your dog?" Maybe it was the anger still simmering under my skin, but that night I dreamt of high school. I remembered my strong, broad-shouldered frame. How I seemed to attract attention wherever I went. Teenage cruelty often arrived unprovoked, sharp as glass and just as pointless. Boys would shove each other, laughing and jeering. "Bet you don't have the guts to kiss her." What, you looking for a beating? Go arm wrestle her, let's see who's stronger. One time after returning from the bathroom, I saw a girl in our class with her shoelace untied. A group of boys, always up to no good, stared at her exposed collarbone, their eyes filled with mockery and something slimier. That look, it made my skin crawl. A sickening sensation that prickled right down to my scalp. I didn't think twice. I walked straight up and stomped on one of the boy's feet hard. His face twisted in anger as he swung at me. But before his fist could land, Daniel stepped in. He caught the boy's hand midair, twisting it effortlessly, slamming him against the wall with one arm, his grip firm on the boy's jaw. His voice was low, cold. Apologize to Clara. The sunlight that day seemed softer, carrying the faint scent of fresh grass. It was in that fleeting, ordinary moment that I felt it. An unexpected flutter. A heartbeat out of sync. When I woke up, my pillow was soaked with tears. It was only 2 a.m. I got up to pour myself a glass of water when I heard something outside. I opened the door. Daniel was there. He leaned against his car, looking worn out, cigarette butts scattered at his feet. The cold wind had drained the color from his face, making him look thinner, almost fragile. His gaze, unfocused at first, gradually sharpened when he saw me. Without a word, I closed the door. I crawled back into bed, heart steady, breath calm. Then my phone buzzed. Sorry about Peter. I've cut ties with him. He won't bother you again. There was a pause, like he'd hesitated before typing the next part. Clara, I broke up with Monica. Daniel had settled temporarily near my place. Every time I went downstairs, he was there waiting. When I came home at night, he was still there, like a shadow that refused to fade. I ignored him. So did my mom. She shrugged one evening and said, people need self-respect, but you can't stop a dog from guarding a house. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, not that this is his house. You broke up with him, remember? Meanwhile, my career was finally gaining traction. Becky and I were busier than ever, landing small ad deals and feeling the rush of real progress. We were constantly in meetings, brainstorming new content ideas, riding the wave of momentum. One evening after work, I wasn't paying attention and got scraped by a passing bicycle. The cut wasn't deep, but blood trickled down my leg. Becky rushed to my side, steadying me. Are you okay? Before I could respond, Brian had already sprinted off. He came back breathless. Arms full of bandages, antiseptics, and gauze. Becky couldn't resist teasing him, laughing at his dramatic entrance. His chest still heaving, Brian's bright eyes locked onto mine. Hey, he asked softly. What? Help you with the wound. I ended up refusing his offer, choosing to sit on a nearby bench and clean the cut myself. Later, since we wrapped up filming earlier than expected, Brian insisted on driving me home. He drove at a snail's pace, nervously glancing around as if the car might explode. I didn't call him out on it. A trip that usually took 30 minutes dragged into an hour and a half. When we finally arrived, he rushed out to open my door, his hand naturally reaching out to steady me as I stepped out. Thanks, I said with a smile. But as I turned toward my building, my steps faltered. Daniel was there, leaning against the wall, his eyes locked on me with a hollow, restless gaze. His face was pale, lips parting slightly as if to speak. But no words came. Then he started walking toward me. Brian noticed the shift in my expression, lowering his voice to ask, Clara, is that someone you don't like? Yes. Without sparing Daniel another glance, I grabbed Brian's hand and walked right past him. But Daniel reached out, his fingers catching the hem of my jacket. I stopped, my gaze calm and indifferent as it fell on him. It was like a jolt. He snapped back to reality, quickly letting go. His eyes drifted to my bandaged leg. Are you okay? He asked quietly. Silence was my only response. The door closed in his face once again, just like all the other times. No words. No answers. Just an ending that had already happened long ago. After closing the door, I heard sounds coming from the kitchen. When my mom saw Brian, her eyes lit up with delight. It's so nice to see you again, Brian. Stay for dinner, won't you? She said warmly. Brian hesitated, glancing at me for reassurance. I nodded. My mom's been looking forward to seeing you again. His smile bloomed, soft and genuine, dimples faintly appearing at the corners of his mouth. As we moved inside, I asked, Aren't you curious about who that was just now? I've got a pretty good guess, he replied while slipping off his shoes. But it doesn't matter. Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice, his breath warm against my ear. You said he's someone you hate. That means he's not important anymore. I met his gentle gaze, feeling my face flush slightly, though I didn't respond. After dinner, it was already past 10. My mom and I walked him to the door. But the moment we opened it, her cheerful expression vanished. Daniel was standing there again, like a shadow that refused to fade. My mom's tone grew sharp. What are you doing here, Daniel? He offered a strained, awkward smile, raising his hand in a weak greeting. Brian's gaze shifted to Daniel, lingering for a second before he let out a small, unreadable chuckle. See you tomorrow, Brian said to me, his voice light. I nodded, wishing him good night. But then, without warning, he reached for my hand. Before I could react, he pulled me into a soft, tentative hug, light as a feather, like he was afraid I'd break. His lips brushed close to my ear. Sorry, Clara, he whispered gently. This is just a friendly hug. If that's okay? I murmured. But you already did it without asking. Before he could respond, Daniel yanked him away with force, grabbing his collar, his fist raised like a wild animal on the brink of losing control. Daniel, I said, my voice sharp. His body froze mid-motion, his hand trembling slightly. His eyes were red, filled with something I couldn't decipher. This was the same man who had once let me go without hesitation, and now here he was, falling apart over what? Regret? Brian brushed off Daniel's grip with a bitter laugh, straightening his collar. Should we call the cops? He asked. Glancing at me, Daniel's voice broke through, desperate and unsteady. Clara, who is he? Your new boyfriend. I looked at him coldly, my voice void of any warmth. Daniel, we've broken up. I know, he muttered, lost and flustered. His tears fell freely now, staining his face. His words stumbled out, messy and raw. But I regret it. I regret everything. Clara, but I don't. I cut him off without hesitation. I don't regret leaving you. I don't regret walking away from Los Angeles. And I will never ever look back. I took a deep breath. My voice steady and final. Whether I have a boyfriend or who I marry someday has nothing to do with you. Because the person I'll spend the rest of my life with will never be you. That was the moment the light in his eyes, the fragile, flickering hope, died completely. That night, Daniel didn't wait outside anymore. Months passed. Then one evening much later I received a message from him. It had been 2 months since the last time we saw each other. Clara, can we meet one last time? Just to say goodbye. This time I replied. Okay. Outside, snow had started to fall, blanketing the world in quiet white. Without realizing it, another year was drawing to a close. An end. And a beginning. I met Daniel at a small cafe nearby. The snow had piled thick on the ground, untouched and pristine. The sidewalks hadn't been fully cleared, leaving patches of ice glinting under the winter sun. As I walked, I nudged a chunk of snow with my foot. It crumbled easily, scattering into powder, and for a brief moment I laughed, genuinely enjoying the simple, fleeting joy that winter always brought me. But the laughter faded just as quickly when I saw Daniel standing not far away, his gaze fixed on me. For a second it felt like I'd been pulled back to high school. Snow falling softly, cold air biting my cheeks. Back then I loved making snowballs and kicking them as hard as I could, watching them burst apart. I could almost hear his voice from the past, shouting from an open window, "Lunch is ready. Coming." I'd laughed, turning back toward the house, my heart light and unburdened. But today wasn't that day. As I approached, Daniel exhaled softly, his breath visible in the cold air. I almost thought we were back to the way things used to be, he murmured, his voice tinged with a bittersweet edge. Then his lips curved into a hollow smile. But this time it's to say goodbye. We sat opposite each other, an entire table, and years of distance between us. I ordered a coffee, glanced at the time and said plainly, "I only have an hour." He nodded, his fingers fidgeting restlessly against the edge of the table. "About the journal," he began, his voice low. "I'm sorry. I really am. I'm not bothered by that anymore." My words were calm, detached. His fingers stilled, and for a moment he looked like he was struggling to find the right words. "If," he started, his voice faltering. "If you'd never found that journal, would we have—" "There's no if," I cut him off. My voice was steady, final. Even without the journal, we wouldn't have lasted. Silence settled between us, thick like the snow outside. After a pause, he spoke again, confusion etched across his face. There's one thing I still don't understand, he said quietly. We were together for so many years. Why wouldn't you give me another chance? Let me ask you something, I said, suppressing the frustration rising in my chest. Why did you get into a relationship with me in the first place? Daniel stayed silent. To repay a debt, I answered for him, summing up the absurdity of it all. And what gave you the right? I forced a smile, sharp and cold. What made you think your affection was some kind of gift to me? Was it just because I liked you? But the truth is, not long after I confessed, I had already moved on. Saving you that day wasn't some grand sacrifice. I did it because we knew each other. If it had been anyone else, I'd have done the same. I stirred my coffee, the clinking sound soft but grounding. A laugh escaped me, bitter and hollow. If you hadn't given me false hope afterward, I would have adjusted quickly and started fresh. I was good to you because I thought you deserved it. That's all. I set the spoon down, glancing at him. Daniel, love can be beautiful. But it's not powerful enough to ruin a person's life. Even without you, I would have lived just fine. What I care about is that you had so many chances to tell me you didn't love me, but instead you chose the worst way. You tied us together with a lie. You wasted 7 years of your life. And you wasted 7 years of mine. Daniel shot up from his seat, eyes wild with panic, mouth opening like he wanted to explain but unable to find the words. His eyes glistened as he squeezed them shut. It's not like that. You didn't realize your own feelings. I asked, my tone flat. He nodded slowly. I laughed again, this time louder. My mom used to tell me, don't waste time on people you don't like. Focus on those who matter. That's why I never fought with you about Peter. 1, because I didn't care about his opinions, and 2, because I didn't want to make you unhappy. That's love. Love is obvious. It's clear. I loved you, so I wanted to treat you well. But your love? I couldn't feel it. Daniel had no response. If I hadn't found that journal and we'd gotten married, you would have grown resentful. You'd feel trapped, like you were forced into it by some moral obligation. We would have been miserable. And you still don't get that, do you? Even after all this time, the emotions were still there, faint echoes that refused to fade completely. Our breakup wasn't because of the journal, Peter. It was because of your arrogance, disguised as kindness. You thought you were being noble, but all you did was belittle me. I stood, grabbing my bag. Daniel scrambled up too, his face tense with regret. But I'm not blameless either, I added softly. My mistake was not walking away sooner. I should have realized it was over when you let your friends treat me like I was nothing. And you did nothing about it. I took a deep breath. This is the last time we'll ever see each other. I'm only here out of respect for Emma. I turned to leave, not sparing him another glance. Let's never meet again, Daniel. As I pushed open the cafe door, my phone rang. Becky's name flashing on the screen. Done yet? We're waiting for you at dinner. If you don't get here soon, Brian's going to come looking for you. I smiled, the tension slipping away like melting snow. On my way, I replied. In March, I received a special request from a little girl. The weather was still cold. A biting chill lingering in the air, yet she wore thin, worn-out clothes. Her left eye was unusual, clouded like she might be blind in it. She stopped us on the street, her small voice filled with hesitation. Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, she said softly, but I heard your videos are about making friends. I'd like to make a friend. Becky and I gently asked her a few questions, and that's how we learned her name was Sunny. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was very young, and she'd been raised by her grandmother ever since. But her grandmother was cruel, constantly calling her a bad omen, ignoring her, treating her left eye like it was some kind of curse. At school things weren't any better. The kids bullied her relentlessly. No one likes me, she whispered, her gaze falling to the ground. Her words stuck with me, lingering long after we parted. Because of her request, we started visiting different elementary schools around town, searching. Eventually we met Angela. A bright, bubbly girl with a smile as warm as the sun. Fitting really, since she'd be the light Sunny desperately needed. When the day of their meeting arrived, Angela couldn't contain her excitement. She skipped and hopped the whole way, her parents trailing behind with amused, affectionate smiles. Angela's been looking forward to this for days, her mother said. She's been counting down the hours, just wanting to meet her new friend. Hearing that filled me with warmth, a rare, genuine sense of purpose. When the girls finally met, it didn't take more than 15 minutes for them to click, like they'd known each other forever. Angela leaned in, her expression serious but filled with sincerity. Your eye isn't ugly at all. The people who said that, they just don't have good taste. From today on, I'm your friend. I found myself speaking before I even realized it. And I'm your friend too. Becky chimed in, her voice soft and warm. Me too. Angela's mom knelt down, gently patting Sunny's head. Our house isn't far from yours. If you ever miss Angela, come over, I'll bake you cookies. As we said our goodbyes, I turned to Sunny, crouching to meet her gaze. Don't pay too much attention to what people who don't like you say. They're not important. What matters is that you know who you are. I thought of a line I'd read in a book by Sophie Tanner. I choose to be my own closest lover, my most loyal comrade. Self-respect, self-love, self-confidence. May it last a lifetime, unwavering to the end. Sunny didn't fully understand, I could tell. But that was okay. I pulled her into a gentle hug, her small frame fitting perfectly in my arms. Sweetheart, you are a wonderful, wonderful person. When it came time to edit the video, I didn't post it right away. I'm not done, I told Becky. There's still one more thing I need to film, one last surprise. While I was editing the video that night, I heard the sound of a car outside. My phone buzzed. It was Brian. Clara, come outside. I've got a gift for you. We hadn't seen each other for almost a week. He'd recently started a new job, one that required him to travel abroad for business. He'd been incredibly busy. When I went downstairs, he was standing by his car, the trunk wide open. The moment he saw me, he waved me over. Inside the trunk were all sorts of snacks he'd collected from abroad. He shoved a few boxes into my arms while juggling the rest in his own, his voice casual, playful. Well, these are for a regular friend, he said with a grin. I couldn't help but laugh. He nodded toward the door. Lead the way, friend. Our relationship had never crossed that invisible line, and he never seemed to mind. But this time I couldn't hold back the question that had been lingering in my mind. Did you, maybe like me back then? I asked, half teasing, half curious. He chuckled, stepping a little closer. I didn't even know what that meant at the time, he admitted. I just really wanted to be your friend. But then you moved to LA, and honestly, I was pretty heartbroken. Back then, Brian had been a skinny, shy kid, always walking with his head down. And I, Clara, had held my head high, defiant, refusing to bow to the cruelty thrown my way. Teenage Brian had thought, I really want to be Clara's friend. But he never took that step. When he found out I was leaving, he'd cried alone in his room. What he never told me was that when he was 23, we'd crossed paths briefly because of a work project. I didn't recognize him, but he recognized me. Later, after clashing with his company's leadership, he quit and returned to our hometown. When he heard I was back too, the first thing he did was reach out. Because he still wanted to be my friend. But getting to know me again, the real me, the grown me, he realized it was more than just friendship now. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something that had been planted long ago. A seed from middle school that had quietly taken root, growing stronger with time. I was stunned. I never imagined, I whispered, that someone back then actually wanted to be my friend. Brian rested his chin on his hand, tilting his head slightly as he looked at me. You shine on your own, he said softly. People who are on the same wavelength can't help but be drawn to you. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was just life circling us back to each other after all these years. I told him, let's take things slow. And he smiled as if that was exactly what he hoped for. Because he never liked rushing into anything, especially not love. Bangai. After parting ways with Clara at the cafe, Daniel never messaged her again. The weight of their years together now reduced to nothing more than a painful memory. A dull ache that gripped his chest every time he thought of her. But the person responsible for that pain was him. After Peter's confrontation with Clara, Daniel had exploded, their argument escalating into a full-blown fight. He couldn't understand Peter's relentless malice towards her, the way he latched onto her like a dog that refused to let go. It wasn't until Peter snapped in frustration, shouting, Then go win her back. What's so great about her hometown anyway? Why would she want to stay there? That Daniel sensed something different. His eyes narrowed. You like her? Peter's body stiffened, his usual smirk faltering for the briefest second before he forced a scoff. Me? Like that fat pig? You've got to be kidding. But Daniel cut him off, his voice flat, certain. You like her. The words hung in the air, undeniable. Peter stopped pretending. He let out a bitter, broken laugh, his defenses crumbling. Yeah. So what? Maybe if she didn't look at me like I'm trash, like I don't even exist, I wouldn't have treated her the way I did. If she'd just shown me a little kindness, I wouldn't have. Daniel stared at him, stunned. Not because Peter had feelings for Clara, but because he'd let someone like Peter poison her life for years, and done nothing to stop it. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. You know what's funny? Daniel said quietly, his voice dripping with contempt. She hates you. Peter's bitter laugh turned sharp, defensive. Doesn't she hate you too? Daniel's jaw clenched. I'm not like you. We had something real. Peter's smile faded. He leaned in slightly, his words like a knife. To Clara, you're no different from me now. Daniel didn't respond. Because deep down he knew Peter was right. Still, he packed up his guilt, his regret, and followed her to her hometown. Like an addict desperate for one last fix, he lingered outside her building, waiting, hoping for something, anything. He wanted to tell Clara he loved her. That he'd broken up with Monica because he never loved her. That maybe, just maybe, they could start over. But Clara never gave him that chance. She hated him just as much as she hated Peter. After she left the cafe that day, Daniel sat alone for hours, staring at nothing, the emptiness inside him louder than any words she'd spoken. When he finally walked out, he felt lost, truly lost. There was no direction to go because there was no home anymore. Not without Clara. He threw himself into work, convincing himself he didn't care. But the body keeps score. Eventually, the exhaustion caught up with him and he collapsed, waking up in a hospital bed. Surrounded by nothing but sterile walls and the echo of a name he'd never stop hearing in his mind. Clara. In the sterile quiet of the hospital room, Daniel reached for his phone. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened Clara's social media account. There was her latest video. He pressed play, the screen illuminating his tired face, casting shadows under his hollow eyes. Toward the end of the video, there was a surprise clip, a heartfelt message, a bonus she'd recorded. Her voice was soft but steady, filled with warmth that cut through him like glass. To the dear girl watching this. Hello. What are you doing right now? Are you gazing toward the future or chasing after your dreams? Are you a student, an adult, a mother? Are you happy? Are you okay? No matter who you are, I just want to tell you this. You're amazing. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry, as if every word she spoke carved another line into his heart. I used to be a weightlifter, Clara continued. I had a strong, muscular body, an appearance that the world didn't find pretty. I've heard people whisper, belittle, judge. But none of that defines me. When I was younger, I always wanted to stand tall, my back straight, my head held high. I used to think, what do they know? I could spend days, months, years training, gaining weight, pushing limits. Of course, I should be proud of myself. And just like that, I hope you feel proud of yourself too. Daniel's chest tightened. His mind flashed with memories. Clara's determined eyes, her defiant smile, the way she carried herself with strength even when the world tried to chip away at her. After college, I worked in sales for a few years. When I decided to quit, I struggled with self-doubt. But I did it anyway. I went back home to rest, to breathe. And that's when I realized something important. Life is far more forgiving than we think. When you realize you've taken the wrong path, it's okay to turn around. Starting over isn't failure, it's courage. Dear girl, I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope you like yourself. Because I do. I'm proud of who I am. The video ended, but Daniel didn't move. He watched it again. And again. And again, each time feeling the ache in his chest grow sharper. More vivid. Her words echoed in the emptiness around him, but louder still in the hollowness inside him. He remembered the last time he saw her. The coldness in her eyes, the finality in her voice. That night he had a dream. It was snowing. Clara was there, her laughter ringing through the crisp winter air as she finished building a snowball. Then without warning she ran straight into his arms, her warmth melting into him like sunlight. "Clara," he whispered in the dream, his voice fragile. She looked up, her eyes bright and full of life, warmth flickering like embers. "Goodbye," she said softly. And in that dream he said goodbye too. For the first and last time. It was the most beautiful season. Inside that dream. But outside in the waking world years had passed. The snow had melted. The warmth was gone. He realized he should have said goodbye long ago. Back when it still mattered. Back when it could have been graceful. But he understood it too late. Far too late. And in the end he had nothing left but the echoes of her voice and the crushing weight of years wasted. A heart full of regret for the girl he never truly deserved.